Hey, everybody, this is Rick Alberty. I'm the Executive Director of ChamberSouth, and today we're here for another edition of ChamberSouth Spotlight. And today I have the honor of speaking with Mr. Ryan Noble with 4 kids. How are you, Ryan?
Man, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely, Ryan. Ryan, tell me, first of all, before we get into 4 kids and what the organization does and what it's all about, who is Ryan Noble?
Well, I wear a lot of hats, but I'm an associate pastor here in Miami for a church plant in Miami Lakes. I've been married coming up on 18 years
Congratulations.
this fall. Me and my wife go back to high school. We grew up in the same church, knew each other, families knew each other. Have 3 beautiful kids, 14, 12, and 9.
Wow.
So my 2 oldest are girls, and then I have my little son, 9. So pray for me.
You got your hands
figuring it
full,
out.
my friend.
Trying to figure out, but they're great kids. They're thriving in sports, and so if I'm not working, I'm a Uber driver. I'm taking a kid to a volleyball game or a baseball game, so I'm in those stages of parenting right now.
I've been there, done that,
Yes,
my
sir.
friend. Been there, done that. Thank God my kids are now, wow, one is 30 and the other one's 37. So
Yeah, so I need to ask you for some advice.
Yeah, you do.
Come pick your brain a little.
I mean, it's a different world now. That's for
right.
sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So, Ryan, tell me about the organization For Kids. What's it all about?
Yeah, so 4 Kids, we are a faith-based foster care agency. So what we do, our mission is to provide hope to children in crisis, specifically in the foster care system, the child welfare system. And we do that mainly by recruiting families and licensing families to provide homes for these children. 4 Kids has been around for 30 years, was birthed out of Broward from a church, and then since then expanded into 5 regions across South Florida. So we have our office in Palm Beach, an office up in the Treasure Coast, which is like Port St. Lucie to Sebastian, kind of give or take.
Okay.
Southwest Florida, the 5 counties out west, so
Wow.
Naples, Fort Myers. And then Miami was the newest region that we were invited to come work out of. And we've been in Miami since 2022 now.
When you say invited, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so Florida's privatized care. And what that means is that DCF, Department of Child Services, Child and Family Services, while they oversee the state, they don't necessarily dictate how every region operates. So you can think of Florida as broken up into circuits, like a political map, something like
Okay.
that. Every circuit kind of oversees itself. And because of that, the circuits have to invite agencies to come work with families. So 4 Kids, as executive director, I can't say, I'm going to go work with families in Tampa and just move up to Tampa and start
Can't do
working.
that.
They have to invite us. And so while we've been praying about Miami and wanted to come in, it was about, coming up on 4 years ago where Citrus Family, Health Family Services invited 4 Kids to come work in Miami.
Citrus has the contract with the state of Florida.
Yes.
And
sir.
they oversee all the other foster children organizations. Or I don't know if they say, I'm not going to use the word oversee. They fund those organizations.
I think overseas, kind of correct. They're called the lead agency, so they lead the efforts. In Miami, there's about 13 other organizations in Miami that can license families that recruit or that do some type of child service activity, and it funnels up to Citrus.
Okay. At your locations, right now you said you have 5.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
In those 5 locations, do children go there on a daily basis?
No, they actually don't. So we're what's called traditional foster parents. So we recruit families, and when a family gets their license, they open their home up to receive a child. So we don't have a group facility. That's what's called group care. That type of facility is where children come and they stay, and you have children from different ages, different backgrounds, different traumatic experiences. And we don't think that's the best place for a child because they all get thrown into the same facility, and you don't have a mom and dad. You have actual staff, right? So I would come do my 8-hour shift, and then someone else would come do an 8-hour shift. And we believe children deserve a mommy and a daddy, a stable home, stable environment. So it's 2 different models. You have the traditional foster parents, traditional homes, and then you have congregate care, or what we would consider a group home.
Okay. Tell me about, you used the word for parents that they have to, I guess, get approved or get licensed.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? How's
Yeah.
that processed?
So
Explain that process to the listeners.
So really, for us, because we're faith-based, it's slightly different than other agencies, but everything is pretty similar. It starts with a basic conversation, an interview. We want to make sure that families understand what they're signing up for. 'Cause, sometimes people make emotional decisions. Oh, I want to help children, but they don't really know the ins and outs. So we just really want to ask them questions, allow a family to ask us questions, because we want them to have as much information before they make the decision. Once they do that, then they have to start background checks, which are fingerprinting, level 2. They have to do 21 hours of training that's dictated by the state. We do the training in-house, but the curriculum is from the state, and the hours are set by the state. Then we have to do house visits. This is where we go to a family's home and make sure that the home is safe, it's stable. We have to make corrections to the home. It could be things like if a family has large breed dogs. Are the dogs safe? If a family has guns, if it's a gun owner, do they have the right locks, that type of stuff? If they have a pool, are there safety features? So we just want to make sure that the home is safe, because if we're going to place a child in a home that's coming from a broken situation, we don't want to place a child in a home where they're going to experience another unfortunate broken situation. So there's 2 home visits that happen.
Only 2?
2 initial.
Or 2 prior?
2 initial before a child's placed, and then
Okay.
there's ongoing check-ins.
Ongoing check-ins.
Yes, sir. But before they get the license, there's 2. There's the initial home visit, and then that's when we tell them things that they have to do to correct. Then as we do the packet, paperwork, a lot of things like that, then there's the follow-up home visit. And then what happens is, once we finish this packet, which it's pretty intensive, we submit that to Citrus. They review it. They'll send back corrections that they think we need to make, or follow-ups with the family if they have further questions about anything within the packet. Once Citrus approves it, then we have to submit it a second time up to the state level. So that's where DCF looks at the packet and they review it to make sure. Because again, if we're placing vulnerable children in homes, we want multiple eyes on it to make sure that these are good homes, loving homes,
There's no doubt.
caring homes. And then once DCF approves the packet, that family receives their license. And then at any moment, we could place a child in that home.
I know a little bit about the foster children because I also sit on the board of the Family Resource Center.
Yeah.
So, but to me, it is a secret out there to really the big problem that we have with how many foster children are out there. That agency alone that I sit on their board takes care of 900 kids, in their care. How big is the foster children issue in South Florida?
I would say it's a crisis, not just in South Florida. I would say in America. At any given point in time in America, there's 400,000 children in the system in some form or fashion. South Florida, specifically Miami-Dade, we have over 1,000 kids in foster care in some sense or fashion, because kids come in, they come out. There's group care, there's shelters, there's different things. Right now, what we're seeing this year is on average 51 children each month are being removed from their homes. 51 each month, just in Miami,
just in Miami,
Miami-Dade. And this is no fault of their own. So sometimes we get asked a question, well, what do these kids do to get kicked out of their homes? And they didn't do anything. These aren't bad children. They're being removed due to what's called abuse, abandonment, or neglect.
From the parents.
From the parents, or just the situation.
Or the caretaker.
The caretaker, right? So the kids aren't doing anything bad. They're not being taken care of. And so 51 are being removed each month. Now, that doesn't mean all 51 are going into the system, because what they're going to do first when a child gets removed is they're going to see if there's any family available. So let's say I do something crazy and they come remove my 3 children I just told you about. They're going to see, do I have a brother or a sister, or are my parents here in town, or is there any blood relatives that can take care of the children? So that's the first level, because stats just show children do better when they're with their biological family. So they're going to start there. But then when there's no family available, that's the question: what happens to these children?
How much time can they spend with that family? Is that decided on by the state?
Yes. So they'll decide. Hopefully it's long term, because what they're going to do, anyone in the child welfare system, organization, we're all tracking the same statistic, and it's called the stability rate. And what that shows is that we want children in stable homes, because children thrive when there's stability, when there's safety, when there's love, where there's food, where there's shelter, and it's stable. They're not worried about what's going to happen the next day. Am I going to eat the next day? Are the lights going to be on? So we're tracking stability rate. And so if they place a child with the blood relatives, the desire is they're there until the biological family can receive the child back. The goal of foster care, a lot of people don't realize, it's not adoption. They're two different things. The goal is we want to see families become whole. We want to see what's called reunification. We want to reunite a child back to the biological family when it's safe, when it's responsible to do so. That doesn't always happen, unfortunately, but that's what we want to see happen. So we think of foster care as temporary parents, that you're going to have temporary parenting. You're going to have this child in your life for a season of time. We don't know how long that season's going to be. Right now, on average, the average case of a child in foster care is about 2.5 years.
Is it really?
So it's not a short stint.
Not a forever situation.
Not always.
It's not, okay.
Yeah. Not always, and it's not a quick situation usually. The fastest case that I've seen in the 3 years that I've been with 4 kids is 9 months, where a child was reunified back to the family within 9 months.
Wow.
A lot of times it takes much longer than that. Now when a child goes with their family, a blood relative, typically because it's family, they'll stay for however long it is. Wow. But when it's a traditional foster parent, it's typically up to 2.5 years, give or take, is the average case.
Tell me about the traditional foster parent. How do you find those families?
Yeah, because we're a faith-based agency, we make relationships with churches, local houses of worship, and we'll go to a service if we're invited, and we'll just kind of talk about foster care, talk about the crisis, and if anyone is interested in learning more information. So we recruit our families directly from churches all throughout South Florida, me specifically all throughout Miami. And then when those families are interested, again, it starts with a conversation. We don't sign anybody up right on the spot. And that's what we tell people to kind of ease their concerns. Hey, if you give us your name, you're not
doesn't
committing.
mean that
you're not committing to it, but it really is. I want more information because you said this earlier, Rick. A lot of people, if you haven't been affected by foster care or work in it, you really don't know it. It's not talked about, right?
That's right.
It's like the silent killer, right?
Sure
like strokes and heart attacks. We don't talk about these things, and so a lot of people don't talk about what's happening to these children unless it's affected you. So a lot of times we're just trying to raise awareness. We just want people to understand this is what's happening in our backyard in Miami. That there are a lot of kids right now that don't have homes. We have kids in group homes or shelters. God forbid they're on the streets or they're couch surfing, because some kids don't want to be, especially teenagers. They don't want to be in the system, so they just find friends' houses they can crash at. But that's still not a place for a child. That's not stability. It's not the love of a home,
Absolutely not. And tell me, what is the average? You guys are following statistics all the time. Mm-hmm. What's the average age of a foster child?
It varies.
It does.
We have children coming in from right out the hospital, just born, all the way to, you can be in foster care up until your 18th
18
birthday.
years old.
On your 18th birthday, you're now out. There's some circumstances where you can stay longer, but for the most part, from 0 to 17. And we have kids in every age range of that spectrum. The biggest needs right now in Miami, if you can believe it, infant care. We have to turn away a lot of infants, which has never happened. This is a recent phenomenon. I think partly because of the economy, a lot of parents are going back to work, going back to the workforce. And have an infant, you can't put an infant in daycare. You have to be at home. And so we're seeing infants being turned away. We're seeing teenagers being turned away because teens have a stigma. They're troublemakers, they have attitudes, I don't want to work with them. And these kids just need love and stability, discipline and direction. And then sibling groups is a real problem in Miami. Splitting up. We might have 4 brothers and sisters come into care and we don't have a house that big. And so they have to send one child over here, 2 over here. And those kids now are not only separated from their parents, now they're separated from each other. And rarely will they see each other for the duration they're in the system.
You know what? You used the word crisis earlier, and you're so right on. It is a crisis because, unfortunately, a lot of those kids that don't go to a loving home end up in the streets and end up with a life of crime.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately, once you commit a crime, it's difficult to get out of that.
Yeah.
Because now you have a record. It's tougher to get a job, tougher to get a good job, tougher to get stability. And, unfortunately, that's why a lot of children that don't have a loving family, end up as in the crime business, in jail.
Yeah, it's why it's why the stability rate, that word I use, is so important. So the state of Florida sets a goal of 4.2. And what that means is they're tracking in a 1,000-day period. So let's just say 3 years. How many times does a child move to a new home once they come into the system? The state of Florida's goal is 4 moves, which, if you think about that, you had children growing up. What would happen if they went to 4 new homes, new sets of parents, new strangers, new neighborhoods, 4 times in 3 years? That's the goal. The state of Florida right now is over that. They're about a 4.6, give or take.
Wow.
Now, stats show, this is why I say it's a crisis. Stats show once a child moves more than 5 times, any duration, so not just 1,000 days, any time in foster care, once a child moves over 5 times, every bad circumstance you can think of skyrockets the percentage. So the percentage of mental health challenges goes up about 60%, of children having mental disorders, crime, so entering into the legal system, early pregnancy for the young ladies, and that's a problem because typically this becomes a generational thing of children giving birth to children that are going to go into the system.
Foster children.
A really troubling stat is trafficking, children becoming susceptible to being trafficked. I mean, all these numbers skyrocket once children move more than 5 times, and the state's hovering around that line. Now, the beauty of 4 kids, we're not, our stability rate right now across all of our regions is below 1. So our children that come into one of our homes are probably only going to move 1 time in 3 years. And a lot of times they're being reunified or they're being adopted.
That is fantastic.
And so we're serving children at 4 kids at a really high level. And I believe it's because of 2 reasons. I mean, really 3 reasons. I will say because we are faith-based, we're starting at a different foundation of it being a faith activity. But also, we provide complete wraparound services to our families. So our families that become foster parents, they're not in this alone. They get licensed. We place a child in their home, but then we're here to help them for whatever they need. I have somebody on my staff called a foster parent support specialist, and she's pretty much like a doctor on call. Anytime our families have any issues, they can give her a call. Sometimes it might not even be help. They just need to vent to somebody. But we'll receive calls at 4 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. Children need to be taken to the urgent care. And we have staff that'll show up at the urgent care, the hospital with them, because we're there for the family. They're not in this alone. And on top of that, the churches that we partner with, we also raise up volunteer teams to serve these families, touch points to help them take care of children that are entering their home. So that's one level. But then the second level, we have an in-house therapy practice that 4 kids launched maybe about 13 or 14 years ago. So what we noticed was, yes, we can give a child a loving home, and we should. But these children are bringing baggage with them. They've experienced traumatic events in their life. Some of these kids have gone through trauma that adults haven't gone through.
That's absolutely correct.
And even if it wasn't acute trauma, just being removed from everything you know is traumatic. And so we started to ask the question, how could we help serve the mental side of the child? And so we launched a therapy practice called EPIC. It's called the EPIC approach. EPIC is an acronym, stands for emotional, physical, intellectual, and character development. So it's a holistic approach to healing, but it's trauma-informed therapy. Trauma-informed care, TIC is the acronym. And really what it's doing is it's how do we help children overcome the trauma that they experienced in their life. We utilize a lot of play techniques, play therapy, sensory techniques. The hot word is TBRI. It's a practice or a term that came out of TCU. And so it's really helping children overcome their trauma, helping children learn how to regulate their emotions, learning how to use their words instead of acting out behavior issues. Because a lot of children in the foster care system are going to have behavioral issues.
There's no doubt.
But those are symptoms. That's not the root cause. And so if you don't address that, this is why children bounce around from home to home. is because parents will say, oh, this children's acting out. I don't know how to deal with them. Here's a 30-day notice. You got to get this child out of my home.
So wait, they can give a 30-day notice.
Foster parents can give 30-day notice that it's not working out.
And the child can get removed.
Pretty much kick a child out the home.
Wow.
So what happens is these children start to develop compound trauma, right? So no one expects this. No foster parent expects this. They expect the best placement possible. They make all these promises to the child up front. We love you, blah, blah, blah. And then in 30 days, it doesn't work out. We're going to kick you out. And so now children, defense mechanisms, they stop trusting adults. They put up these walls. Then children will start to self-sabotage. So they'll go to a home, and before adults can give up on me, I'm going to do things on purpose. I'm going to act out on purpose so I can just get kicked out because I don't trust anybody. And this is why you see that stability rate. So you start to see kids being. We saw a case where a teenager moved 13 times in 2 years.
Wow.
13 times. And you can just imagine the trauma and the walls of defense, the attitude, the anger, the resentment, the pain that child is going through. Again, the blessing with 4 kids is we're not seeing that because we're helping children with their trauma. We're also training the adults and supporting them, our parents, and we're just creating an ecosystem of care.
You know, it's amazing, you know, when someone has to move from house to house to house to house to house, parents to parents to parents, of course they're going to have issues. Of course they're going to have problems. And, you know, it's so difficult because the adults blame it on the kids.
Yeah.
Immediately. That's number one. Hey, this is a troublemaker. This guy's doing, or this girl's doing that. And you said something earlier also that unfortunately pregnancy by young ladies and those babies will also probably fall into the same thing. Tell me the difference, or tell the listeners the difference between foster parents and adoptive parents.
Yeah, so foster parents, again, the idea is you're a temporary parent. So you're opening your home for a season to take in a child, and for however long that duration is, that child is now your child. So it's not a stepchild, it's not a lesser than. I'm treating this foster child that's coming into my home just like my own son or my own daughter. The same things that I give my son and my daughter, I'm giving to them, providing them with love, structure, stability, safety, food, encouragement, all the things that you would give your own child. But the hope is we want to see that child reunified with the biological parents. So what happens when a child gets removed from their parents, this is the part that we don't deal with as a foster care agency, but those biological mothers and fathers have to go before the court and they get put on a caseload. So they have to show the state certain things that their home is now safe and stable and they're ready to get their child back. They've corrected the bad behavior, whatever it may be. So they might have to do 5 things, 6 things, whatever it is, you know, and it's not just like you do them all at once. It takes time to show it. But we're rooting for the family, even though that's not our part. We're hoping that we want to see families whole.
Absolutely.
And so if that family does everything they're supposed to do and now that home is now safe and stable, that the foster child will now be reunited back to their biological family.
You said earlier the fastest has been 9 months.
That's the fastest I've seen. Now some cases might be faster, but
usually take 2 years.
Yeah, on average,
2, 3
2
years.
And you just don't know. And we tell our families, you don't know how long you have this child in your home, but you'll never know the impact and the way you'll change this child's life with the season that you'll have the child in your home. Now, unfortunately, sometimes the parents don't do what they're supposed to do to get the child back, and that's called termination of parental rights. So the court is going to be lenient. They're going to give parents chance after chance, but eventually they know, like, hey, these parents aren't going to cut it. Or sometimes if we know the case is really bad up front, you know, about 10% of all cases in foster care are the really bad ones that we think of, right? The real bad sexual abuse or, you know, physical abuse or just crazy situations. 90% aren't those. 90%, these parents are loving. They just need help. The bad circumstances, situations,
financial situations.
And that's something that I had to learn. I used to think all these parents were monsters. That's not the case. We have loving mothers and fathers out there. They need help and they need to be resourced. They need to do certain stuff. Now, the child does need to be removed because the home is unsafe, but we're gonna fight for that reunification. But when the parents don't get their act together and they don't make a safe home, it's a termination of parental rights. When that happens, that's when adoption can take place.
Ryan, let me ask you a question. Have you ever, and I'm going to assume that it has happened, you have a child in foster care and they don't want to go back to their parent?
Yeah, we have that happen, and for different reasons. Sometimes it's just because of the bond, the attachment that has happened, and what we try to do. Again, this doesn't always work. We're hoping, especially with our families, try to establish an ongoing relationship with the biological parents, and we've seen that happen before, where our foster parents almost become like godparents to some of these foster children that have been reunited, and relationships continue. That doesn't happen a lot, and I get why, but again, stats just show children are going to do better in life when they're with their biological families. We just know that, and so while it is painful to let a child go back to their family, we understand we're in this for the best interest of the child, not the best interest for us.
I got one more question for you, because unfortunately we're out of time, but I have one more question for you. You know it, and I know it because I'm in the business as well. But after 18 years old, you're out of foster care. You're out on your own, and there's some organizations out there like Out of Foster Organization that Out of Foster Foundation that helps kids after 18. How big of a problem is that?
It is. It's a big problem because, I mean, think about if you have your own children when they turn 18, they're considered adults, but they're not. They're not adults. They're still learning. Now imagine children who've bounced around from home to home and have never been taught life, never been given certain life skills, and now they're considered an adult. So it's a problem because these young adults aren't ready for life.
Absolutely.
So there are programs that help teach life skills, help kids who've aged out. Hey, do you want to finish your high school, get your diploma? Do you want to go to college? Do you want to learn a trade? Do you want to get ready to enter the workforce? And they teach them these skills to get them prepared for life. A lot of programs are 2-year programs. 4Kids does have that program, but it's just in Broward. We don't have that in Miami yet. But Miami does have organizations, like you said, Rick, that help these young adults get on their feet, get prepared for life, and get them ready to become contributors in society. But it's a problem because these young adults need help.
And they do. They need a lot of help. As an adult, we need help.
Yes, sir.
Imagine young kids that thrown out into the world like that. Well, listen, we could stay here all day talking about this because people out there really do not realize how much of a problem this really is, and it is a crisis. And hopefully, things will get better, and more kids will stay with their biological parents, and hopefully more kids will stay out of the I'm going to say the judicial system. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for your time today, Ryan. I really appreciate it. On 3, we're going to look at those cameras and say goodbye. 1, 2, 3. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.